All right, so here is our reading for today. Can you fly high, Wright brothers? Let's look at how the chronological text structure will help us keep track of the time period or the sequence of facts presented in Can You Fly High, Wright brothers? We've got our text feature of contents. This is a navigator, helps us navigate. All right, we'll start reading with who were the Wright brothers? The Wright brothers were Wilbur and Orville Wright. They made history by building and flying the first airplane powered by an engine. Their first successful flight took place on December 17th, 1903. Within a few years, airplanes completely changed the world. Early airplanes fought battles in World War I, 1914 to 1918, and delivered mail over big distances. Later, planes carried people around the globe and did many other jobs, from fighting forest fires to spraying crops. Airplanes have changed a lot since the Wright brothers' invention, yet modern planes still work much like the first airplane. From 1903 to today, the sky's the limit. So I see a lot of examples of those signal words that we were talking about in the introduction. We're talking about the first airplanes here. I see these signal words right here, within a few years. Oops. And then I see this word later, and I see these dates. So they're telling us about things that have happened until we get to the last paragraph that talks about modern airplanes. Let's keep reading and looking for signal words. Who was the older brother? Wilbur Wright was older than Orville. He was born on April 16, 1867, at a farm near Millville, Indiana. Wilbur was the third son of Milton and Susan Wright. The father was a minister and later a bishop. His church duties sent him to different parts of the country. To stay together, the family moved often. People said that young Wilbur was quiet and serious like his father. Wilbur enjoyed reading and studying. He spoke slowly and rarely got angry. In other ways, Wilbur was like his mother. Susan Wright was busy, active, and very good at fixing things. While her husband was away, Mrs. Wright ran the house and took care of the children. Wilbur helped his mother and became good at home repairs. How much younger was Orville Wright? Orville Wright was born 4 years after Wilbur on August the 19th, 1871. By that time, the family was living in Dayton, Ohio. Orville was more fun-loving than Wilbur. He spoke fast and enjoyed telling jokes. He often played tricks on people. His bubbly personality led Orville's friends and family to call him Bubbo. As a child, Orville was very curious, but not too interested in school. His favorite activity was taking things apart and discovering how they worked. Then he liked to put them back together again. Orville and Wilbur's older brothers were named Rushlin and Lon. Their sister Catherine was born 3 years after Orville. When their mother died, Catherine was 15 years old. She kept the house for her brother and her father until she left for college. So I'm going to pause there and let's talk about what we've read on these 2 pages. So definitely I'm seeing a chronological order because the thing that they're famous for happens much later in their life. But the author is giving us their childhood stories in order to kind of build up some background knowledge about how their childhoods probably influenced what they did when they were older. And then I'm looking for those, I'm looking for dates. These are the things that the author included the birthdays. He included 3 years after when the sister was born. And then he talks about after their mother died. So these are the things that happened during their childhood, and he's telling them in order that they happened. So this is chronological. Let's keep reading. Did the Wright brothers have happy childhoods? The Wright children grew up in a home that was strict but very loving. Their parents encouraged the children to follow their own interests and always ask questions. The children had many books, and the brothers did lots of reading. Wilbur once said, "From the time we were little children, my brother Orville and myself lived together, played together, worked together, and in fact thought together." The brothers were so close they would often finish each other's sentences. Together, Wilbur and Orville made a good team. Wilbur usually thought of the things they could make, and then Orville, with Wilbur's help, built objects from scraps of wood or metal they found around the house. When did the brothers become interested in flying? When Wilbur was 11 and Orville was 7, their father brought home a surprise. It was a toy helicopter. The plane was powered by a rubber band attached to 2 propellers. Twisting the rubber band made the propeller spin and sent the helicopter up into the air. The boys spent hours playing with this toy. They named it the Bat. When the bat broke, they were able to fix it right away. The brothers also made copies of the bat and earned money selling the toys to their friends. Later, the brothers tried to build a larger toy helicopter, but they could not get it to fly. Wilbur and Orville said their interest in flying started with the bat and the trouble they had making a larger helicopter. All right, so again, chronological text structure. The boys are getting older, and it's telling about what they did with this toy and how, and then down here it says later they did this. So we have 3 events connected with this toy that their dad brought home. Did the Wright brothers go to college? Orville and Wilbur were average students. However, neither of them graduated from high school. Orville dropped out before graduation, and Wilbur never took his final exams. Wilbur thought about going to college, but an accident changed his mind. He was badly hurt playing ice hockey. His recovery took 4 years. During that time, Wilbur also took care of his mother, who was very sick. After that, he decided to stay at home. Instead of going to college, both brothers made up their mind to start a business. So again, the boys are out of childhood in their high school years, and it talks about how the recovery took 4 years. And during that time is a good signal word for chronological. Also, this phrase after that, that shows that this is the passing of time. So this section of the book between childhood and adulthood is chronological. What was the Wright brothers' first business? Orville got interested in the printing business when he was helping his father in the church printing plant. At 13, he built his own printing press with help from Wilbur. Orville made the press out of scrap metal, an old tombstone, and firewood. In the world do you get a tombstone? At first, Orville and Wilbur put their homemade printing press to work doing small jobs for their friends. Later, they published a weekly newspaper called the West Side News. The first issue came out on March the 1st, 1889. Wilbur was 21. Orville was 17. After a year, Orville and Wilbur changed the West Side News to a daily newspaper. But 3 months later, the paper failed, and the brothers went back to being printers. They mainly made business cards, wedding invitations, and posters. So you can see those chronological phrases in here. At 13, at first, later, the first issue, after a year, 3 months later. All of that is chronological order. The story is going in sequence. And that's where we're going to stop just for a minute, and we're going to switch over to the description text structure. All right, so as we continue to listen to the story of how they built airplanes, let's also listen for descriptive, detailed writing that helps us visualize the information the authors presented. The authors are going to give us some wonderful details about the size and speed of their planes. So let's listen carefully for these details and others. In the 1890s, a new fad was sweeping the country. It was bicycles. The old kind had giant front wheels and tiny back wheels. The new ones looked like the bikes of today. They were safer and easier to ride. Wilbur and Orville were among the first in Dayton to own the new bicycles. Wilbur enjoyed going for long rides in the country. Orville was more interested in racing. Of course, both brothers were able to fix their bikes when anything went wrong. Soon people began asking Wilbur and Orville to repair their bikes. By 1892, the Wright brothers decided to close the printing shop and open a bicycle store. They sold, fixed, and rented bikes, and even began building their own bicycles. So when we're looking for description for those main ideas and details, we can think about Wilbur's rides, just riding casually through the country. But then we think of Orville doing more of the racing. It also talks about how the bicycles looked. And then it describes what they did in their bicycle shop. So that's all. This is description with details. Let's keep listening. When did Wilbur and Orville decide to build an airplane? The brothers first got the idea of inventing an airplane in 1896. They read a newspaper article about the German inventor Otto Lilienthal. He was testing a glider when it crashed and he was killed. A glider is a kind of aircraft that looks something like a small airplane but without an engine. It is held up by wind and air currents. So I like that description right there of a glider. Like, we kind of have an idea of what a glider might be, but the author puts it in very detailed terms. Tells what it looks like and how it moves. All right, let's keep reading. Soon the brothers were reading all they could about flying. They found that people had long dreamed of soaring like birds. Around the year 1485, Leonardo da Vinci imagined a flying machine with flapping wings. Others built giant balloons filled with hot air that rose up into the sky. Many built gliders, but no one had built a safe and useful flying machine. The Wright brothers decided to give it a try. So down here we have Da Vinci's drawing of the flapping flying machine, and up here we have an illustration of some French brothers, the Montgolfier brothers, and so they were flying their hot air balloons in France. Why did the Wrights build a giant kite? First, the Wright brothers built a giant kite shaped like a glider. They wanted to find a way to steer it. No one had yet solved this problem with flying machines. Wilbur studied how birds fly. Birds raise one wing and lower the other to make a turn. Could the Wrights steer the kite by twisting its wings? The Wrights ran cords from the kite's wingtips to small sticks that they held in their hand. And when the kite was in the air, they pulled on the right cord, and the kite turned right. And when they pulled on the left cord, the kite turned left. It worked. So we have good description here about why kites solve the problem of turning the device. So they're going to use that kite information to help their airplane. What happened after that? Next, the Wright brothers built a glider big enough to carry one person. They put it together at their Dayton bicycle shop. It had two wings, one above the other. The glider's wooden body was covered with a white cotton cloth. The pilot lay down on the lower wing. His feet rested against a wooden bar. Wires connected the ends of the bar to the wingtips. By pushing with one foot, the glider turned to the left, and by pushing with the other foot, the glider turned to the right. In front of the bottom wing was a flat panel the brothers called the elevator. The pilot controlled the elevator with his hands. By raising or lowering the elevator, the pilot made the glider go up and down. So I'm seeing a lot of description here. Like if I didn't have that photo and I wanted to draw a picture, I would, have the two wings, one on top of the other. I would know to draw that the frame was made out of wood and the wings were covered with cloth. I would have the pilot laying down and he would have something at his feet and something at his hands and to help move the glider. So lots of description there about this glider. How does a glider fly? A glider flies when the air under the wings pushes up harder than the air above pushes down. A glider's wings are curved on top and flat on the bottom. The shape of the glider's wing is important when the glider is moving. As the glider moves forward, the air flowing above the wings flows faster than the air flowing under the wings. And I like how they have that diagram text feature there to help really put that description in a visual so that I can tell what that looks like. Fast-moving air does not press down as hard as slow-moving air presses up. To get off the ground, the glider must be moving quite fast. Gliders get up to speed by rolling down a hill or by being towed. At the right speed, the stronger air pressure beneath the wings lifts the glider and holds it up in the air. So all of that description helps me understand the main idea of how do we get this glider to fly? Well, first of all, I have to have the right shape wings. That's a good descriptive detail. I have to get the glider going fast enough to get the air on top moving fast and the air on the bottom moving slow. And then once I have that air moving in the right way, that's going to hold my glider up in the air. When did the Wright brothers test their glider? The first test took place in the summer of 1900. The brothers shipped the glider to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, on the Atlantic coast. Kitty Hawk is a strip of land with big sand hills called dunes. The glider could pick up speed rolling down a dune. And in case of a crash, the sand dune would cause less damage. So did you get all those details about why they picked Kitty Hawk? They've got the dunes there with those big sand hills. They can roll down fast enough. And then the sand is soft enough to help cushion a blow if you did indeed have to fall and crash. Each day, the brothers made at least a dozen flights. The best ones lasted just a few seconds and covered only a few hundred meters. In 1901 and 1902, the brothers built two more gliders. They made thousands of test flights, and finally, they were ready to move on. What was the next big step? Wilbur and Orville began to build an airplane powered by a gasoline engine. The new plane looked like a glider, but it had an engine. The engine was connected to two propellers with extra long bicycle chains. The engine turned the chains and made the propellers turn. The spinning propellers would push the airplane forward. When the airplane was moving fast enough, it would lift up into the air. Next, the Wright brothers made the wings the same shape as the glider wings, curved on the top, flat on the bottom. The stronger air pressure under the wings would raise the airplane and keep it in the air. Propellers are built like the wings of a glider or an airplane. The front of the propeller is curved like the top of the wing, and the back side is flat. As the propeller spins, the slow-moving air behind the propeller pushes hard, and the fast-moving air in the front pushes less hard. And the stronger push sends the airplane forward. So lots of description about those wings again and how the shape influences the flight. When was the brothers' first planned flight? On December the 14th, 1903, Wilbur and Orville were ready to fly. They put down a 60-foot wooden track on the sand. On top, the men placed a small cart with wheels. Gently, they set the airplane on the cart. The plane, which they had named the Flyer, would take off from this track. The brothers tossed a coin to see who would fly first. Wilbur won. He climbed in and lay face down in the middle of the lower wing. The spinning propellers pulled the plane along the track. It was a great moment, but the plane did not lift up. Instead, it slammed right into the sand. Wilbur wasn't hurt, and the plane was hardly damaged. Wilbur had tried to make the plane rise too quickly, they thought, so their next job was to fix the plane. What happened on December the 17th, 1903? Well, the Wright brothers tried again. The morning was very cold and windy. Neither man was dressed for the weather. Each one wore his usual outfit, suit, white shirt, tie, and cap. I like all that description right there. You can kind of visualize in your head, what they were wearing and what the weather was like. At 10:35 a.m., 5 friends helped Orville and Wilbur get the plane ready to fly. Now it was Orville's turn. He laid down, he started the engine. It coughed and sputtered loudly. It's a good description right there. I can hear the sounds. The propellers spun around faster and faster. Orville let go of the wire holding the plane. It started to roll forward. Wilbur walked, then trotted, and finally ran alongside, and the Flyer rose up into the air. The machine wobbled and swayed. I love those verbs right there. But Orville got it under control. It flew 120 feet, or 36.6 meters, about half the length of a football field, and the flight lasted 12 seconds. But it was the first time a human had ever flown in an airplane. So all that description right there from the last 4 or 5 pages, that is super important for us as readers because that description helps us understand the text. It helps us visualize what was going on. It helps us remember those details, help us remember facts about the first flight. All right, so in our lesson today, our author has used chronological and descriptive text structures at the same time. And as we finish the text, let's listen for examples of both structures, and let's think about how they're helping us learn new information about the Wright brothers. Did Orville and Wilbur become famous? At first, very few people knew their names, but the brothers kept working, building better and better airplanes. Within 5 years, their planes could fly for more than an hour, and they could travel about 100 miles. In 1908, Wilbur went to France to show off their latest airplane. Finally, people took notice. Everyone around the world wanted to learn about the remarkable new invention. The brothers opened an airplane factory in Dayton. Soon they were making 2 planes a month. They sold planes to the governments of France, Germany, England, Italy, and the United States. The brothers soon became rich and famous. What did the future hold? Wilbur died first on May the 30th, 1912 in Dayton. More than 25,000 people came to his funeral. In 1955, he was elected to the Hall of Fame for Great Americans. Orville, on the other hand, worked for the next 30 years. Without Wilbur, though, Orville accomplished only half as much, and his most notable invention was a seaplane that could take off and land on water. After that, he worked on other inventions: an improved bread toaster, a water pump, and a washing machine. Wilbur died on January the 30th, 1948. So we have lots of details chronologically about their their time of their death, and some of the awards that they won later in life, and some of the things that they did after their fame and fortune that they had from the airplane. All right, so we're going to stop there for today. And I'm going to close us out on the last slide.